Every track that I've done for this project has come with some form of unique lesson to teach me. Whether it's how to use my boot and my floor to make a drum sample, or how to come up with creative new sounds in order to do what I want to do with my limited budget, I've felt like every one of these has given me something that I can learn that hopefully has been beneficial to you, my fellow creators who have been watching these videos. This song was no different, and I feel like there were two very specific things that it pulled my focus to as I worked on this track, and that is vulnerability and how to capture a performance. This is episode 5 of producing an album with under $1,000 worth of equipment. In my last video, I talked about dealing with writer's block, and as a response to that, I produced a track that was about dealing with writer's block. Now, funny enough, this next song that I'm going to talk about, I wrote in maybe 10 minutes.
I think that I'm dying, 'cause my words bit off my tongue. I think that I'm dying, 'cause I can't sing another song. And I think that I'm trying so hard to make this all mean something. I know that I'm drinking too much, 'cause I can't stop thinking that I'm dying.
So to be really honest and straightforward with all of you, I was going through a period where I was just feeling kind of depressed and purposeless and was really down on motivation. And to be honest, I can be a bit of a hypochondriac. So often I'll have little tiny health problems, and then I'll go down a rabbit hole of all of these things that are wrong with me. But in this case, it was kind of a combination of things that included just this feeling like something was wrong with my body. And on this one day, I was trying to pull myself out of it, and so I'd put on my gym clothes despite the complete feeling of not wanting to do so, and I was getting ready to go and do a workout in the hopes that it would make me feel better. And I walked past my studio, and I saw this open notebook lying there that I used to write all my songs in. I have a number of them going for each year, and I ended up sitting down, picking up a guitar, and I just wrote this song that deals with feeling like your body's not working, feeling like you're dying, feeling this almost existential dread. And I tried to use the song itself to resolve my own feelings. The idea was, how can I go from I think that I'm dying and this terrifies me to I know that death is an inevitable thing and I'm content with it. I did a couple of kind of test plays with it shortly after writing it. In fact, the day after I wrote it, I played it at a songwriter night, and it seemed to get some pretty decent response. And then I posted it to a few channels in kind of just a raw video form. Oddly enough, as may happen with this video, some of those got totally shadow banned on social media, where they just were not shown to everyone. We're talking like 2 to 5 views on them, and it's because I said the word death. So here in this episode about vulnerability in art, I'm going to talk about fear of death, and this song's going to talk about a fear of death and a coping with it. And it's kind of funny to me that in the process of trying to be vulnerable as artists, these very algorithms that we use actually don't even allow us to enter into a vulnerability about that very thing, which I think just proves the importance of art. Art is a way that we can express these feelings and these issues and this commonality of being human that in some ways the very technology that seems to govern our lives actually wants to prevent us from having a discourse about. So I hope that if you feel like this, or if you struggle with these feelings, as honestly I think that we all do, then I hope that this song in some way speaks to you. Cutting back to these two key points of vulnerability and capturing a performance. It is difficult for me to be this level of vulnerable in front of people. The easiest songs to play tend to be the ones that you have no connection to because you don't have any investment in it. While this is a very real struggle for me in order to play it and to film it or to do it in front of others or record it, all of that is now I'm bearing my soul. So this connection that I have to it is a hard one to separate from, which, funny enough, is the thing that I talked about in the last video. But I knew that this meant something to me, and I knew there had to be at least a few people out there who would feel the same thing. And so my goal was, how could I capture this song in as vulnerable a way as possible? In fact, my first idea was maybe I could sit down, just me and a guitar, and record it shortly after I wrote it in order to get all of the emotions that I was experiencing at the time that I created it. I made an attempt at this, and unfortunately it didn't work, and I'm going to touch on that more as this episode continues. But what I knew I could do is try to take note of the emotions that I was feeling in that moment. Now, the truth is, vulnerability is really, really scary when it comes to art. And I'm sure if you're an artist of any form and you're watching this, you know exactly how that feels. To have someone strip down something that's authentic is really frightening. But the best pieces of artwork are those that are authentic. So I think that if us as artists are able to tap in to our vulnerability, even if just for a moment, then what we produce has a much larger chance of making an impact on someone else. The truth of the matter is, most of us are far less alone than we think we are, and much of the things that we feel are much more shared than we presume. Now, the second lesson that I told you I learned from this song is capturing a performance well. How can we capture a performance in a way that both sounds good in a recorded fashion and is pleasing to the ear, but also retains that almost personal feel? Now, there's a lot of different genres of music and different ways to approach production, all of which affect someone's desire to capture a performance. In most pop music, what you're going to receive is not really a captured performance as much as a very, very fine-tuned production machine. The producer is absolutely just as important to the process as the artist is. We're going to clean up our vocals to the point that you have no recollection of the room that the vocal was recorded in. The drums are going to be as tight as we can. There's going to be no leaking. We're going to be using samples. Everything is tuned to perfection. And this is not a bad thing. That is what currently that genre of music is attempting to do. And this has become more and more the case post mid-90s as production equipment has gotten better and you have streaming and download qualities. You have different ways that you can listen to music, and there's all of these things that do kind of merit the need to increase the quality and the fine-tuning of which music requires. Alternatively, as we go back in time towards the beginning of the production of music, more and more what you're going to find is really fine-tuned musicians all playing together for a single capture. In fact, multi-tracking wasn't even a common thing to do until the Beatles started doing it. And they were vastly ahead of the curve in regards to production. But I have found that some of the most exciting and touching pieces of music are those that have a wonderfully captured performance. A good friend of mine named Ely Cartwright actually put out a project recently called One Take Sessions, where he did a number of EPs, and each of them are one take recordings. It's his vocal and his guitar, and he records them together in one take doing these songs. I know he did a number of different takes and he picked his favorite one, but what's really, really cool about that is that you end up getting these really authentic performances of each of these songs, and it actually connects you more to him as an artist, I feel like, and the narrative that he's trying to give with each of these pieces. One of his songs is actually playing in the background right now. It sounds just like this, and you can hear the authenticity in this performance.
The heavens are homestead. We're raising up stars while sailing through time zones, the infinite space.
So originally with this song, my desire was to do the same thing. I wanted to sit down and do a vocal and guitar together capture of this track. But in the interest of vulnerability itself, I have to let you know that it didn't work. This song ended up taking me way longer to record than I planned on, especially considering the simplicity of it. And I think that's because the real difficulty was I have to capture this well. And honestly, live capturing can be much more difficult than we think, especially in a sense like this, where I don't actually have the forgiveness of a live concert because that's not the setting that I'm doing this. And I don't want this to be a live track, but I do want to capture it with that kind of one take, one setting sort of feel. Part of the issue with this actually goes in line with the very nature of this project. If I used my normal recording interface and equipment, this is something that I absolutely think that I could have done well. I could have recorded my guitar and my vocal together the way that I like with one take. However, I have limited myself on this project, and in the pursuit of honesty, I think that the equipment that I chose made it impossible for me to do a high quality recording in this way at the level that I wanted it to sound. Now, the interface that I'm using for this project is right here. This is the PreSonus Audio Box 1, and you can see all of the different equipment that I chose to use for this project back in episode 1. What you will notice is that there are two inputs on here. There is an XLR input and there is a 1/4 inch input. I can provide phantom power to the XLR. I cannot provide phantom power to the 1/4 inch. While this does allow me to record in tandem, the main issue is the method of recording a guitar and a voice for this song. For the majority of this project, what I have done is a direct input and a microphone recording for my acoustic guitar. I will record both through the XLR input, utilizing the PGA 181 microphone that I selected for this project with phantom power, which just gets a really good capture of both the room and the low tones of the guitar. And then I will use my guitar's onboard direct input into the 1/4 inch channel. This gets me a really solid, well-rounded recording of the guitar, but in order to do my vocal and the guitar together, I have to sacrifice one of those inputs. Now, I have the option to convert an XLR input into a 1/4 inch for this. I tried it. I lose so much signal that it just did not really sound good with any of the microphones that I selected for this project. And so my first attempt was to do the direct input on the guitar merged with the PGA 181 miking my vocal. I did a number of takes. I got one that I really liked and I tried to mix it. And truthfully, just the onboard sound for my guitar's pickup was not good enough. There was a lot of missing sonic content there, and it picked up some things that I really didn't want it to pick up. While it's a really great resource for me to have when I also have the mic'd sound to mix in, it wasn't there. It sounded fake, even though I was trying to capture something that's real and authentic. Even more so, in order to repair that sound, what happened was any leaking that I got from the acoustic guitar through my vocal mic ended up having a really unfortunate sound to it, where there was some phase messiness and some weird EQ stuff that occurred that I just couldn't fix. And I am not a fan of let's fix it in post. My goal is let's get a great recording first, and in post what we should be doing is enhancing it. And that just wasn't possible here. My next attempt was to do 2 takes where I recorded each part, but I did the other one over it, and I just found that I had issues in this too with syncing things up, and it just wasn't perfect. So all of this goes to say, no, I don't think that you can do a successful recording of this kind with the equipment that I chose for this project. So what I ended up having to do is just fake it the absolute best that I could. One thing that this did mean is that I ended up using a metronome, which I originally didn't want to use for this specific song, in order to try to capture that kind of moving in and out and a little bit of speed changes that felt authentic to me. But I think that we were absolutely able to save the soul of this song in this recording, and I'm really proud of it. Thus, I ended up recording the acoustic guitar in the way that I have done it for this whole album. I made sure that I used one continuous take. There is no patching things together on this. And I recorded with the PGA 181 microphone just around the 12th fret and angled a little bit towards the sound hole, and then using using my direct input as well. For the vocal, I also used the PGA 181, and I got a pretty solid take that I really liked and utilized on this song. Now, there were two other things that I added to this because, well, if we're in the place that we're gonna fake it like this, we might as well add some stuff to add a little bit more depth to this song. The first issue that I had was that my vocal tone in this song was missing some of its low end, so I did a very minor low end double of my voice that's going under this. Hopefully you don't even notice it at all. It's really just there to add some oomph, because given that there's only two instruments in this song all together, there was some sonic space that I just felt was missing in my ears that bothered me. You may not notice it at all, but it makes me feel better about the take overall. Second, I wanted you to feel like you were in the room with me, and so I used a really dumb production trick that is often used when doing audio for films. And what I did for that is I took my trusty old SM57 and I recorded the room that I recorded in. It's just a 3-minute and 40-second recording of kind of silence. My window in my studio is open, so you can hear a little bit of wind rustling and some trees and leaves if you listen really carefully. But what you're really hearing is the unique flavor of silence that is in the room that I recorded in. And I actually felt like that gave an interesting depth to this track. And I really could tell. And maybe that's a placebo effect, but if it is, then it's a successful placebo effect. Lastly, there is pretty much minimal processing on this whole project on the post side of things. What you're going to find is a basic EQ and some compression, especially on my vocal because I am really soft and then really loud. So I did need something to kind of squelch it a little bit. There's barely anything on the guitar. I slightly EQ'd differently, both the direct input and the microphone. I'm really just removing some frequencies and putting up a little bit more of that low end and then that high sound of the pick hitting the strings depending on which channel you're looking at, and some light panning in order to just make it feel more cozy and like you're in the room. On the vocal, I've added some saturation and some reverb to try to simulate the space that I was already recording in. Lastly, to prep this project for export, I actually tried using Logic's now included mastering option, and to be honest, it did a great job. This track sounds pretty stinking solid. While I don't think this is the best thing to use if you've got a song that has, 30 or 45 different tracks in it, this was a really solid option for a song that is this simple, and I think you could have minimal experience with EQ and with mastering in general and get something that's at least workable to give to people as a demo out of this. So to conclude this quick episode, the two things that I wanted to point out were vulnerability and capturing a performance. To sum up, vulnerability is a critical part of producing music that connects with people. I think that we have to engage in practices and we have to teach ourselves how to be vulnerable with others, especially if it's a skill that has never been required of us. Getting better at being vulnerable in front of others, I think, is a critical aspect of our success and relatability as artists. Second, it's hard to capture an authentic performance, but I think if we do it well, it pays off. But that's something that we absolutely have to learn. And it goes beyond just saying, can I set everything up to do this well in one take? That's not always the case, but does ask the question when we are producing music, even in this fine-tuned way. If we're using auto-tune, if we're using all of these different tools to try to make something that's really fine and precise, I think that we need to ask the question of how do I retain the performance within this capture? I don't think I've found the solution. If anything, what I've told you is that this was really difficult to me. So if you know of ways that are really effective for capturing a performance well, please post them in the comments and let me know. But this is a question that I think we need to be asking as producers, is how do we do this so that we can better connect with our listener? I promised that this would be a short episode, so there's not a lot that I've gone into, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope this inspires you to go and create, and I hope that you'll go check out this song. I've only got one more song for this project, for this 4-track EP. So I'm really excited to kind of cap off this writing and demo phase of this project. If you haven't, please go back and watch the other episodes. It's been really, really cool and really exciting, and I hope that it inspires you and gives you some more tools to create. If you want to be more involved and be a part of the Ragged Oak community, please go to patreon.com/Ragged Oak. You actually don't have to pay to get a lot of the stuff on there. There's a lot of early releases, there's stems, there's specialty videos, there's write-ups. It's just a cool place to be part of what we're all trying to do here. Lastly, you saw Eli's music in today's video, but I am trying to support other independent artists. So if you have music that you want to be featured at the end of any of these next videos, please send it to management@raggedoak.com and I will give it a listen. And if I like your music, it could appear at the end of the next episode. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for listening. I really do hope that this inspires you to go out and to make music. I will see you on the next episode of Making an Album for Under $1,000.